The Boston Celtics make the right move. Now, before we get into that, just a couple of quick things. This is not a JB versus JT video. I want to make that abundantly clear. Jason Tatum, he's an all-world player. But, we just have to come to the same conclusion. From all perspectives, Boston, they had to deal him. They had to deal JB away. At this current stage, you cannot trade Tatum with that injury. And the fact that he just hurt his opposite knee this year, which it's most likely a compensation issue. Because of his Achilles tendon and the injury he had on the other knee. We don't know what it is specifically. They didn't diagnose, at least from what I saw. It's likely a compensatory issue. Boston, with all those things combined, we'll go into more in just a second. They couldn't keep Jaylen Brown. There's just a few issues there. Tatum's injury at this current time, it just kind of makes him untradeable. There's no way, you can say that people asked for him. You can't convince me that people really, truly were willing to give up a lot of resources to get Tatum at this time. Brown, he just had a full year at the helm. No Tatum. It was clear that, he kind of rushed back to regain control of the team. Tatum, I'm talking about now, toward the end of the season. Brown, he's basically had his Scottie Pippen year, that 93-94 year that Pippen had. He basically had that kind of a year where he was doing his thing. He looked like an MVP candidate. Boston, they were likely going to have a power dynamic issue. In addition to them not being cheap, this is going to be a big issue. The reality is Jaylen Brown, he's not a power forward. He's not a center. The Celtics cannot afford these guys being at similar levels talent-wise anymore, with Tatum also taking a step back. Now, they could do it when Tatum was still, at a high level performance-wise, them being similar pace structures, similar play styles, what they brought to the table. But Jaylen Brown being at his highest value right now after an MVP level season, and those two basically bucking for who's the chief, at this current stage, you can't have two bulls in the pen. If someone says this is a reach, me saying, the power dynamic issue is a reach, we just have to remember that this man was receiving consideration for MVP prior to Jason Tatum returning. And then when Tatum basically was supposed to be out all year, an Achilles tendon rupture, really you need to be out all year doing rehab and recovering. They say you can return in 6 to 12 months. Really, you're probably going to need past 12 months to get full explosiveness back. I think when Kevin Durant came back, he came back after like 500 days. Now, he was older than what Jason Tatum is. But also, he's also a bigger player. He plays with a lot more finesse and control to his game than Jason Tatum does. Tatum's a little bit shorter. And he's not short, obviously. But he has a little bit more explosiveness needed for his game, being shorter than Kevin Durant. That's something that you really shouldn't have been rushing back for. We have two guys who got their Achilles torn around the same time period. Dame, he tore his. Dame's an older player, a shorter player. Dame didn't rush back. Halliburton is also a shorter player, but he's younger, and he didn't rush back. So I think that Tatum, saw that what was happening, and I think there was added pressure for him to come back and perform at a high level, and he gave into that pressure, unfortunately, and we see him having a knee injury. I don't know why these guys break themselves, to do this when they're getting paid millions already. I understand there's passion for the game, but I also think there was something in the mind subconsciously, most likely, where he probably needed to reassert himself into the discussion for his team in terms of being the leader. I think all those guys that made comebacks successfully from Achilles tendon injuries were either better players or better athletes than Jason Tatum. Now, the guys I'm talking about are like Kevin Durant, Dominique Wilkins. Basically, every other player has torn their Achilles in terms of professional basketball at the NBA level. Most of them have not come back at a high level. Chauncey Billups, Kobe Bryant, all these guys, rest in peace, obviously, and have great respect for these guys on the court. But nobody came back at their high level that they were at besides Durant and Dominique Wilkins. Now, Dominique Wilkins, this isn't a slight to Tatum. Dominique Wilkins is a better athlete than Jason Tatum. Dominique Wilkins is a freak one-of-one athlete. There's really only like one or two guys in the league at the time who could hang with him in terms of athleticism. Maybe Michael Jordan in his day and age, and maybe one or two others that you could probably pull out of a hat. That's about it. Tatum is a great athlete, but he's not on that level. And then you look at someone like Kevin Durant. Jason Tatum, you could say maybe he's a better athlete than Kevin Durant. Maybe. That's up in the air. But one thing that's definitely not up in the air is Jason Tatum does not have Kevin Durant's overall talent level and fundamental skill level. Jason Tatum is a high-level player. He's an A-level player. But Kevin Durant is A+. There is a difference, respectfully. And those two guys are one of one of, their time periods. And Jason Tatum, he's a very special player. He's an All-NBA, first-team All-NBA player. Let's be clear. But there is a tier difference. There's a reason that he's never won an MVP, number one. And number two, he's never been considered the best player in the league. And quite frankly, I think that he really should not have rushed back. He's a great player. He's a top 5, top 10 player when he's at his best. But Tatum, he doesn't have what those guys had to be able to come back, to be rushing back. That he shouldn't have done that. He's not an elite finisher at the rim, but his game is very well-rounded. So really, when he comes back next year, he should be about 80 to 90% of himself. But the problem is 80 to 90% of what he was is a huge loss of production in comparison to his first-team All-NBA caliber. When he takes a step back, he's no longer going to be good enough to lead that team, especially without Jaylen Brown. So Boston, they knew at this point that they were going to have to change it up. They were going to have to get somebody who can take pressure off of Tatum in a different way than what Brown does. Tatum and Brown basically do taking turns on who runs the offense. Tatum usually runs it, and then for spells, Brown will run it. The problem is there's nobody down in the paint that commands real presence and draws any sort of gravity, draws attention from the defense, makes them collapse to give Tatum room to work. And because he's going to have a loss of a first step, he's going to have a slower first step. He guaranteed will have a slower first step. You could see it when he came back. He'll be better next year than he was at the tail end of this year, but it will not be the same Tatum from like 2022, 23, 24. Those like 3 years where he looked like a top 5 guy. That's most likely not going to be the player that we see again, respectfully. Hopefully he comes back close to that, but it's likely that he's not going to look like that. So Boston knew they had to make a move for a talented big who would be as good as Brown or better when it comes to impact. And who better than Giannis at that time period? Now, if I was the GM, I'm making that trade for Giannis. Yes, I would make that trade for Giannis to get either Tatum out or Brown out. The problem is there's no way the Milwaukee Bucks wanted Jason Tatum at this current stage for Giannis. Even if you added picks, that was not going to fly. So Jaylen Brown, sorry, you're the one that's going up. They probably tried to put him up, but the problem is for years prior, they always put Jaylen Brown up, even when him and Tatum were both healthy. So the relationship was most likely definitely strained. I do see the allure with trying to get Giannis. The problem is it got sloppy. They didn't pull the trigger the full way. They didn't give up the pieces that Milwaukee wanted. I believe they wanted Hugo Gonzalez as well. I forgot the other pieces that Milwaukee wanted, but I think it was like 1 or 2 players that the Celtics didn't want to give up in addition to Brown, and Milwaukee said no. And they ended up doing the deal with Miami. That's a whole another video for another day, but yeah, definitely the Celtics, they got very cheap. They had to make a move, but they did not make the right move. I mean, the thing that makes this trade silly, I understand that Boston was not good enough to win a chip at this current stage with their talent level on the roster. Even if they added 1 or 2 more pieces, they probably wouldn't have been good enough next year to beat the Knicks or beat the Heat. But I do agree with the whole, pull the trigger a year too early versus a year too late. I do agree with that philosophy. The main thing that made this trade silly is where they sent Jaylen Brown to, and also why they didn't just give the extra pieces to get Giannis. I believe that had they pulled off the Giannis trade, it would have been perfect for him. You're going to get back a player that's better than he's better than both your top guys. That's not even a question. Giannis is a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum at their best. His best versus their best, it's not a conversation. Even though both guys are A-level players, Giannis is, once again, he's an A-plus level talent. There's a difference. And you're also not going to have that power dynamic issue. Now, where they sent Jaylen Brown to is a big problem because that's an in-division rival. I don't care who I'm getting back. It would have to be, just the principle of keeping your schedule easy. The player that you would have to get back for me to trade to somebody in division would have to be somebody who I know for sure I'm winning a championship with, like 90+% certainty. And how many situations like that pop up in NBA history? Maybe you can name 1 or 2. It's not going to happen very often. And I don't know why you send him to Philly, and you're going to send him there with a chip on his shoulder. This dude is, obviously he's intelligent. I'm not going to be one of these people, deriding the man's intelligence. I think people do too much of that. He's obviously an intelligent dude. Credit to him, respect to him. This intelligent people usually have a chip on their shoulder when you slight them. I don't know why you're giving this man bulletin board material. It's not even bulletin board. It happened. It's not a rumor. It's not, stuff in passing, chat, this and that. You guys disrespecting the man, traded him to an in-division rival, basically saying that we don't even think you're good enough to be a problem for us, even though we have to see you a lot. That's going to be an issue. Now, what they got back, they could have had Giannis, which would have been an MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, championship pedigree, establish dominance in the paint, make life easier for Jason Tatum on the wing to create. The problem is they got back Paul George. Now, Paul George, respectfully, he's not the same PG-13 that we all grew up with watching in the Pacers series versus the Heat, where, he's taking them boys 7 games, eating them up, where he went to OKC, looked like an MVP candidate. This is a different Paul George. Now, he can still be a defensive problem and get his buckets in spurts, but his days of being a second guy or a lead guy, those days are over. It's done. But my main point, that I'm getting to is if the Giannis trade went through, there wouldn't be any discussion about whose team it is, who's better. Tatum would have a lot less pressure to create because Giannis, he creates a lot of havoc in that paint. He's a monster in that paint. He forces teams to collapse to contain him. Tatum would eat so much if he was paired with Giannis. Boston just messed this up. Boston, I'm not a huge fan of how Boston conducts business. I think Boston, they've always used Jaylen Brown for trade bait in the past. The relationship was likely done and strained. There's a report that Jaylen Brown did not ask for a trade, and that's probably true. Maybe he didn't ask for the trade, but the team knew that after what they did, they kind of had to move him. It was too much, way too much. They had to do something. I think Philadelphia definitely won that trade. I think Boston set themselves back about 5 years. Now, I understand that people, conversations, they probably want to focus on the racial aspect of Jaylen Brown being an intelligent, so-called black man, but I think that Boston's been trying to sell the stock for years. I'm not really going to go down that angle. I think they've been trying to sell the stock for years. I think they've always been greedy about what they can get back. But before, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum didn't really have an issue on who's going to be lead dog because Boston, they made sure they had the offense flow through Jason Tatum. And Jaylen Brown, he's going to play not Robin, but he's going to play a great wing and a great swing man, do his thing on the wing. After this year, you had a guy who really was running the offense and had the team looking very good. They went to the 2nd seed in the East when they were expected to not be a playoff team. People like to brush by that. The Celtics were not expected to do anything this year. I thought they would be decent. I thought they would be between the 4 and 5 seed. Jaylen Brown and the Celtics went to the 2nd seed. Give him credit for that. And after this year, you have a guy basically who just did that, and he enjoyed being in the lead role, and he's likely not going to want to go back to riding shotgun or leading in spurts. All right. To put this in layman's terms, once you allow somebody to go from being the side to main status, the side is not going to want to go back to being the side. She wants to be the main, and that's probably the situation you had here. Now the trade that would have went for Giannis, that would have been gold mine. But they fumbled it, and they had to settle for something less. And the thing they settled for, they did it in a really goofy way. They sent him to a rival, in-division rival, and they got back less. I mean, those draft picks most likely are not going to amount to much. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they're most likely not going to become a Jaylen Brown. So the only way the Celtics win this trade is if they either A, win a championship in the next 5 years with the team that they've constructed, maybe another piece, or B, if they land a player that is as good or better than Jaylen Brown with those draft picks they got back in that trade. That's the only way we'll know. But these owners, as you guys know, a lot of owners are very cheap. They don't like spending money. I get it. You don't want to have 2 of the same type of guy. This is the best time to get rid of Jaylen Brown and get something else. But the thing they got back, I'm sorry, the juice is most likely not worth the squeeze. But, we're back. We're putting out a few new videos. Look out real soon. We got a series coming on the history of the NBA. I'm going to try and go through some of the great players in history and give them a full breakdown of their career and their game. But respectfully, as always, don't be mad at me, be mad at yourself. God bless. All right, peace.